Typically, Richmond races these days are a hit or miss. Sometimes you get a good one, but most of the time you get a boring one. This race, however, was a classic. Saw a lot of comers and goers, and this race proved to me that Harvick and Hamlin are human. Yo, what is up everyone? My name is Jett and welcome back to the episode of MDK Victory Stop. Now, the reason why I say that Harvick and Hamlin are human, mainly because they are actually beatable. We saw during the regular season, we thought at first that no one looked like would able to compete with Harvick and Hamlin. But this race, we saw a lot of new drivers step up to the plate, especially two drivers. Austin Dillon and Brad Keselowski. We're going to talk about them later on in the show, but this was really a classic race. Only 3 cautions happened in this race: the competition caution and the stage cautions. Long green flag runs, barely any sort of incidents, not even a scuffing of the wall by a lot of drivers, not a lot of bumping and banging, but it was a strategic race. Saw a lot of tire fall off, tire management, multiple strategies taking place. And yeah, it was a really fun but classic race. So just like last weekend at Darlington, a playoff driver suffered issues before the green flag took place. Last weekend it was Ryan Blaney. This weekend it was Kyle Busch. He failed pre-race inspection twice, and as a result, he had to start at the tail end, or basically start at the back of the field. But up front, it was Kevin Harvick, Joe Logano, and Austin Dillon. After his second place finish at Darlington, he was able to start in the top 3. And Dillon right away showed speed. He quickly was able to get by Logano and then was able to chase down and pass Kevin Harvick on lap 22. Very quickly, Austin Dillon showed a ton of speed in this race, and he would actually lead up until the competition caution. And when that took place, Ryan Blaney suffered another issue. So when the competition caution came out, all the drivers came on pit road, did their services for tires and fuel, whatever, all the normal stuff. Well, Blaney, he had to come back onto pit road 1 lap later to fix a apparent loose wheel on the left rear tire. And he had to start at the back of the field, and once he started near the back, he could not recover at all, which is a shock because I think a lot of us had Ryan Blaney at least make it into the round of 8. At least I had him make it into the round of 8 because I thought he had speed. We saw in the early to the mid part of the season, he had a lot of speed. But I'm not going to lie, these past few weeks, we have just seen Blaney sort of fall off a cliff. We have not seen him been up front anywhere near the top 10, or at least up to the level that his teammates, Joe Logano and Brad Keselowski, are these past few weeks. So this playoffs has been disaster. Last weekend at Darlington, they already got off on a really bad foot by losing 10 playoff points and going below the cut line even before they took the green flag, and didn't have a good race at Darlington. Richmond is supposed to be sort of a rebound event from last weekend's horrific race for the team, and now it's just gone worse. So after the restart from that competition caution, Denny Hamlin, who's won at Richmond multiple times before in the past, who has been one of the drivers that people had to lock in for the championship for, quickly took the race lead after a great restart from starting in 3rd place, and would take the lead from Dillon 1 lap after that restart. In the meantime, his teammate, Kyle Busch, remember, he started back dead last at the start of this race. He already made his way up into the 16th spot even before the end of stage 1. But unfortunately, that's as how far as he will go, as I believe by the end of the stage, he would finish 16th, although his teammate, Denny Hamlin, would win stage 1 with Austin Dillon in 2nd, 3rd, Joe Logano, 4th, Brad Keselowski, 5th, Kevin Harvick, 6th, Alex Bowman, 7th, Martin Truex Jr., 8th, Chase Elliott, 9th, Ricky Stenhouse, and Clint Bowyer rounds out the top 10. What a job by Austin Dillon so far in this race. 2nd in stage 2. Also some drivers that have had quiet races. Alex Bowman, solid 6th place run. Chase Elliott, a track that has not been too kind to him in his career, Richmond Raceway. 8th place finish. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., a 9th place finish in stage 1. I thought at first he could potentially have a top 10, maybe top 5 car, but that would be the last we'd ever see Stenhouse in the top 10. And Clint Bowyer, also another driver that needed a good run. He had a pretty solid race here tonight. So stage 1 began with Denny Hamlin and Austin Dillon up front leading the field. Well, they would begin stage 2 at the back of the field because during pit stops after stage 1, both Hamlin and Dillon were caught speeding on pit road and had to start the tail end of the field. That gave the lead to the Penske duo of Brad Keselowski and Joey Logano. You also had new drivers up in the front like Alex Bowman, who started 3rd or 4th, and Kyle Busch, who made his way back up into the top 10 with that pit stop. Now Logano and Keselowski had a really fun battle for a few laps for the race lead. Logano would run a very interesting lane. He would run so low down the front stretch, but still was able to hold back Keselowski from getting any sort of momentum on the inside of him. Keselowski, though, still tried numerous times. You would see Keselowski just get a little bit on Logano's left rear corner panel, but was never able to get side by side. Until he was able to and made contact with Logano, it seemed like. Logano went up the racetrack, Keselowski went by and would take the lead. That's just a little quick rundown, but honestly, it was just one of many fun battles that this race had. Again, nothing much in terms of anything eye-popping or anything that was out there or extreme. It was just a solid race. Saw some really good battles, not only for the lead, but towards the middle of the race pack. And there was a lot of storylines in this race in terms of Austin Dillon, which meanwhile, at that time when Logano and Keselowski were up front, Dillon was on a charge. He started 29th and already was able to work his way up into the 11th spot. Denny Hamlin, on the other hand, I think he started 30th next to Austin Dillon. He was still stuck in 18th spot. So it showed right away, Dillon has a fast car. But ever since then, when Hamlin got stuck back in traffic, Hamlin was just never the same. He was not able to get, I think, as far as 18th, if not maybe 16th or so. After that incident on pit road, Hamlin, we would never see Hamlin in the top 10. So this was a long green flag run, so obviously we would see some green flag pit stops. Certain drivers like Kevin Harvick and Jimmy Johnson would pit on lap 64, while you saw other drivers like Austin Dillon and Cole Custer pit much later on lap 73. As a result of that, when everyone else decided to come in, Kevin Harvick, Austin Dillon, and Aric Almirola would cycle through 1, 2, and 3. But of course, they had to make another pit stop because they pitted way too early. And when 40 laps to go took place in stage 2, Kevin Harvick was getting ready to make his scheduled pit stop, and he would actually get a penalty for going through the orange box. When he made his way onto pit road, he carried in too much speed, and his right front tire hit or at least touched the orange box. And NASCAR rules say it doesn't matter which tire or how much, if your tire or any part of your car hits the orange box, you will be penalized. So that gave the lead to Austin Dillon, but Brad Keselowski and Joe Logano, as well as Martin Truex Jr. drivers who pitted much later than Austin Dillon, had much fresher tires and were charging through the field fast and was able to catch up to Austin Dillon, and Brad Keselowski would be able to pass Dillon for the lead. And that took place with 18 laps to go in stage 2. In the meantime, Kevin Harvick, who because he had to make his way onto pit road once again, he had much fresher tires than anyone else in the field, drove his way back through the field, and was able to unlap himself with under 10 laps to go. Now, Kevin Harvick was on his way trying to rebound from that pit road penalty. Denny Hamlin was just a mess. He was able to get back into the top 15 in the 14th spot, and he reported to his crew chief that his car was like a dragster, in which the car was spinning the rear wheels off of the corner. Now, I'm not sure if this had to do because he was in traffic, because when he was out in front, we didn't hear any reports from Hamlin in terms of the car acting like that. But as soon as he got back into lap traffic and he had all those cars around him, his car changed dramatically and he had all these issues. Car is loose, car's not getting enough grip, and was never able to get the car back to his liking for the remainder of the event. But while Hamlin was struggling, Dillon was surging. Even though he lost the lead to Keselowski and was actually in jeopardy of losing the 3rd place, or at least a 2nd place spot, to Joe Logano, he was actually able to run down Keselowski and battle Keselowski for the lead. And this is on much older tires. So Dillon, even though he had older tires than Keselowski, he, what I thought, had the best car, or at least one of the best cars. Unfortunately, he would not be able to pass Keselowski, as Keselowski was able to win stage 2. But still, brilliant effort, valiant effort from Austin Dillon to try and be able to challenge Brad Keselowski for the race lead, even though he was on much older tires. Now, Keselowski was able to then put on fellow playoff driver Cole Custer a lap down, and was also trying to put Clint Bowyer a lap down, but was not able to do so. But anyways, he would win stage 2, Dillon in 2nd, Truex 3rd, Logano 4th, Elliott in 5th, 6th, Kyle and Kurt, or 7th is Kurt, 8th, Aric Almirola, 9th, Matt Kenseth, and Kevin Harvick was able to rebound to earn at least 1 stage point in 10th place. So when stage 3 began, all eyes were on Austin Dillon. Can he close the deal and challenge Keselowski for the race lead? Well, he started off on the wrong foot. He started 4th and was stuck in the outside lane and fell quickly back into the 8th spot right in front of Kurt Busch. Now this is again stage 3. You had new drivers in the mix like Chase Elliott. Remember, Chase Elliott has been public with Richmond Raceway not being his best track. So to see him in the top 5 in stage 3 was a really big improvement for the 9 team. Obviously, we know what happened with him last weekend at Darlington when he basically got taken out for the race lead between him and Martin Truex Jr. with under a handful of laps to go. They needed a good race to rebound from that event from last weekend, and they had a solid race, a really good race for a team that's saying that they're not a fan of Richmond and they don't expect a really good result. But because of this race and the long green flag runs it produced, then we started to see some interesting strategy calls. 1 stop or 2 stops, like Kevin Harvick. Remember back in stage 2, Kevin Harvick pitted, I think, with around 64 laps to go. When he pitted and got back the race lead, a lot of people took notice of that and figured, maybe they should, instead of going a 1-stop run from stage 3 to the finish and risk losing a lot of wear on your tires, do what Kevin Harvick and Rodney Childress did. Take 2 stops so that you can still keep up with the freshness of your tires and not lose so much ground to your other competitors as you get later on into the run. And so Hamlin was the first to try out that method because he's been struggling all night. He was the first to pit with 105 laps to go, and then everyone, Dillon, Bowyer, Almirola, Byron, Elliott, and more decided to go to a 2-stop strategy in the final stage. But then Austin Dillon, who was having a record night, he would make a mistake. He would miss pit road, carried in way too much speed, but instead of Kevin Harvick and trying to make it to pit road, he just aborts, turns back up onto the racetrack. He was on the apron, turns back up at the racetrack, gets back going, but then he pits 1 lap later for his services. It was a mistake, but it wouldn't be that much of a mistake. He would pit with 63 laps to go, and then everyone else pitted around 6 or 7 laps later with around 54 to 58 laps to go. Now, because Dillon pitted much earlier before everyone else, he obviously cycled back as a race leader, but which Brad Keselowski on much fresher tires was able to run him down, get right behind his back bumper, and would pass him not too long after, and Keselowski would just drive on by, no pressure, no other incidents, and Keselowski will go on to win at Richmond, I think for the 2nd time in his career. And with that, let's now take a look at the unofficial results, as you can see to my right, to the left of your screen. So Keselowski wins. Martin Truex Jr., once again, I think a 2nd place finish. I think this is the 6th or 7th time in the past 8 races he has finished inside the top 3. Was a driver that I wasn't expecting to win, mainly because if you look at the races that he's won, he won under the 550 horsepower package. So I wasn't expecting him to win, but still extremely strong run for the 19 team in 2nd place. Joe Logano in 3rd. Austin Dillon. He might not have won the race, but he won a lot of NASCAR fans' hearts with that run that he made at tonight here at Richmond, as well as last weekend at Darlington, because I think me and a lot of other people had Dillon out in the round of 16, and now he has, I think, a 38-point gap heading into Bristol. So I'm not saying he's going to be in the round of 8, but I will say he is shocking me and a lot of other drivers, and a lot of other fans, I should say, with his performance these past 2 weeks. 5th is Chase Elliott. 6th is Kyle Busch. A nice rebound for the 18 team after the night that they've had starting at the rear of the field, able to work their way back up inside the top 10. 7th is Kevin Harvick. 8th, Eric Almirola. 9th, Alex Bowman. And 10th, Clint Bowyer. It's Kevin Harvick, 7th place. It just seemed that ever since he had that pit road penalty by going through the orange box, he was just never able to recover. I thought that personally he would have a race-winning car, at least be in contention for the race win with Austin Dillon and Brad Keselowski, but he just wasn't able to get back up to the front. Was still stuck in mid-pack around the lower half of the top 10. So 7th place run, but I know that team had a feeling that they could have had a shot at winning this race. 11th, Tyler Reddick. 12th, Denny Hamlin. My goodness. Talk about the highest of highs to the lowest of lows. I mean, after stage 1, we thought, okay, this is going to be another Denny Hamlin or Kevin Harvick type victory, and then we just saw him fell off like a rock. So to see Hamlin finish 12th is somewhat surprising because he was stuck in 18th for the longest time. So 12th, I guess, is a nice finish or a nice recovery. 13th is Kurt Busch. 14th, Cole Custer. 15th, Christopher Bell. 16th, Matt Kenseth. 17th, Matt DiBenedetto. 18th, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. 19th, Ryan Blaney. Ay caramba. Ugh, I don't know what is up with that 12 team, but they need to get their act together if they want to have any shot at advancing next weekend at Bristol. Look, Blaney, he's got a great record at Bristol. He leads a lot of laps, but gets caught up in a lot of wrecks as well. And I think he's last, I think either last or 15th on the playoff grid. He needs to win the race. That's the only way he's going to be able to advance into the round of 12, I feel like. And then some other notables. William Byron, 21st. Yikes. After what we thought he would ride into the round of 16 with a lot of momentum from his win at Daytona, as well as a strong run at Darlington, to see him run this poorly at Richmond was quite shocking. His 22nd, Eric Jones. 23rd, Ryan Newman. 24th, Chris Buescher. 25th, Michael McDowell. And 26th, Bubba Wallace. Jimmy Johnson, 31st. Now, the reason why he's finished that low on the results page was because he made contact hitting the outside wall really early on in the race, and he had a lot of damage on the right rear corner panel, which any part of the car is very important, but the right rear corner panel is one of the most important, one of the most sensitive spots on a race car. So if you damage that, you're going to be in for a very rough night. As for the playoff grid, take a look on your screen right now. We're going to focus from 9th place on back. Kyle Busch, an 18-point gap. Then you had Kurt Busch and Eric Almirola tie for 10th with a 7-point gap. Clint Bowyer holds the final spot, 3 points ahead of William Byron. Cole Custer -8. Matt DiBenedetto -25, and Ryan Blaney -27 on the grid. I'm telling you right now, DiBenedetto and Blaney, really, Bristol, they need to win the race. I know they can get in on points. They can definitely get in on points, but I just feel like they need to win the race if they want to have any shot and make it into the playoffs, or at least advancing onto the round of 12. And they run good at Bristol. I mean, Matt DiBenedetto last August was so close to taking home his first Cup victory, and Ryan Blaney leads a lot of laps, runs up front, but he just gets caught up in a lot of accidents. So what are my thoughts on this race? Well, like I said, it was a classic. We didn't see any real caution flags, and I applaud NASCAR for not throwing a phantom caution like they usually do in the past. To see this race play out naturally, it was cool to see. It was something new, I guess you could say. Was it a boring finish? Yeah, but hey, it's NASCAR. It's life. Not every race should be, or nor will be, an exciting finish. Sometimes you get boring finishes. That's just how it goes, you know? But it was a decent race, I felt like. It reminded me of the old style of racing where long green flag runs, you're going to start to see tire management. Saw a lot of comers and goers. Stage 1 was Hamlin and Dillon. Stage 2 was Logano, Harvick, and Keselowski. Stage 3 was Dillon and Keselowski. There was a lot of different drivers up in the mix. Alex Bowman had a few shiny moments earlier in the race. Chase Elliott had a solid run. Martin Truex Jr. was always second or third. He was never able to get up to the front and battle for the lead. He was always second or third. And it was just a solid race. Usually with Richmond, ever since the COT/next gen or the Gen 6 era, it's been a hit or miss. Sometimes you get a great race, like I think 2017 in the spring when it was run in the daytime, or 2016. Those are really good races. Sometimes you get really bad races, like last year, both Richmond races. But this one was a really good race, in my opinion. I give this about a 7 or a 10, a 7 out of 10. I originally was going to give it an 8 out of 10, but stage 3, look, I have to admit, it was kind of interesting with strategy, but once that sort of was able to play out, the last, 33 laps, it was nothing special to see. So stage 3 was a bit of a drag. Nothing much really happened. That's why I bump it down to a 7 out of 10. But I enjoyed this race. So yeah, I'm happy with that. But what I'm really happy with is next week's race. Bristol Motor Speedway, Saturday night, under the lights, an elimination race. It is going to be one hell of a show to watch Saturday night, and I cannot wait. If it's anything what we saw back in May at Bristol, it's going to be for sure one to watch. They have a lot of storylines with Matt DiBenedetto and Ryan Blaney trying to make their way into the playoffs. And Kyle Busch, he has not won a race so far in 2020. He runs really good at Bristol. Nearly won in May. I felt like he had a really good car. A lot of storylines heading into that race. It sure is going to be a fun one to watch. But tell me in the comment section down below, what are your thoughts on this race? Did you like it? Did you not? And what are your thoughts on any of the playoff drivers heading into the final race of the round of 16 at Bristol? But until next time, my name is Jett from MDK, and I'll see you guys next time.